We're going to go ahead and continue to solve, but this one we're going to start, we're going to see another method. So we've already done by graphing, we've done by square rooting, and we've done by factoring. We're now going to do another method called completing the square. And I'm going to go ahead and show you guys geometrically how does that look, and why is it called completing the square, all right? And then we're going to go ahead and go into our examples. We only have 2 examples, and then your turn. All right, ready. Listos, here we go. Okay, so like I said, we've already been through the 3 methods: graphing, square rooting, and factoring. We're gonna go ahead and work more on factoring tomorrow because I feel like that's where we need the most help on, okay? All right, so next thing, we're gonna go ahead and complete the square. Now I'm gonna go ahead and tell you guys why it's called completing the square. We're gonna go ahead and focus on the first 2 terms of our beautiful quadrilateral, or not quadratic equation. We're just focusing on the value of x squared plus bx. What this is that it's part of your quadratic. Notice here that we have 8x to the power of 2 plus bx plus c. We're just going to focus on these 2, and we're going to make sure that our leading coefficient is always equal to 1, okay? So we're just focusing on the first 2 terms. Now, from here, we have x squared plus bx. So geometrically, you guys don't have to copy this down. I just want you guys to watch this. Geometrically, x squared is going to be represented by a square, right? So one side is x, the other side is x. So the area of that square is what? X to the power of 2x squared. Now imagine that I have another figure with one of the lengths b. The other one's going to be what? X is the same height. So its area is going to be bx. Okay. Now let's go ahead and say that I wanted to manipulate it so that it looks like this. I have my beautiful x squared. My bx, I'm going to go ahead and cut it in 2. Cut it into 2 pieces. One piece, I'm going to go ahead and place it right here along my beautiful square. And the other piece, I'm going to place it right at the bottom. Right here. So it's half a piece and half a piece. So I have b divided by 2 and then b divided by 2 because I'm dividing into 2 pieces. However, notice here that when I put my pieces together, I have a little piece missing right here. Therefore, my square is not complete. Now, in order for me to complete it, I'm going to go ahead and complete that little square. What is the area of that square? It's my constant. It's going to be that constant, but more specifically, look at the length. Its length is b over 2 and what? B over 2. So I'm going to go ahead and make it so that it's b over 2 times x, which is going to be our beautiful constant. So this figure right here is going to be b over 2 to the power of 2. Specifically, I'm going to go ahead and focus on the coefficient of x, which is that second term, or x is basically the value that only has power of 1. And I'm going to complete the square. Okay, so that's what we're doing here. Now that's going to be added on one side, and we're going to go ahead and add it on the opposite side. So our equation remains balanced, and then solve for our beautiful equation. All right, so here are steps. You don't need to copy them down. We're going to go through the procedure. And then hopefully you guys will be able to catch on with the steps. So first step, we're going to go ahead and set our quadratic and standard form, making sure that everything's aligned. Second step, we're going to divide the coefficient or the entire equation by the leading coefficient. Notice here, if it's other than 1, we have to make sure we divide everything by that leading coefficient. Step number 3, eliminate the constant. We're going to go ahead and make sure it's onto the right side. And then we're adding that 1/2 b squared. So b divided by 2 to the power of 2 on each side. Then we're going to factor, take the square roots, write the 2 equations, and then solve for our variable of x. Okay, so this is what I mean. Go ahead and copy this one down. X squared minus 4x minus 12 equals 0. So this is another method that we're going to learn. We can have it in our belt as our part of our tools and methods to solve for our value of x. Okay. All right. So this is what we need to do. First things first, what do we do to that beautiful y? Make it equal to 0. Next item on our beautiful step, make sure that it's written in standard form. So let's go ahead and see, is it written in standard form? Yes. Now we're going to go ahead and eliminate the constant. By eliminating the constant, I need to do the inverse operation of it. So what is happening here to my constant? I have a negative 12. So how do I eliminate it? By doing the inverse, which is now plus 12 on one side, plus 12 on the opposite side. Next, I'm going to go ahead and rewrite my equation so that it's written in this format. I have x to the power of 2 minus 4x. I'm going to leave an intentional space open here. On one side, I now have it equal to, let's go ahead and see what my right side is, 12. So I have 12. And I'm going to write that intentional step or space on my right side. Because whatever I add to one side, I add to the other. Okay? Yeah, makes sense? Now, from here, we're going to go ahead and complete the square. So by completing the square, guys, we're going to go ahead and do that. 1/2 b squared to our beautiful first two terms. Now, that b, let me show you guys. ax plus bx. Remember that we had that in the geometric form? B in this case is what? -4. So b is going to be equal to -4. Make sure I identify that. -4 equals, let's go ahead and substitute. We have -4 divided by 2 to the power of 2. So -4 divided by 2 to the power of 2. Beautiful 4. -4 divided by 2 is 2. And then we have to square it. It goes back to beautiful 4. So we have 4 on one side, 4 on the opposite side. -2 times -2 is +4. Now, once we have this, our next step is to factor. So let's go ahead and factor here. We can use any method. What method do you guys want to use? Square root is whenever you have the first term and the second term. We're going to factor using the Power Ranger method. Let's see. What do values add to multiply to 4 and add to -4? -2 and -2. Now, my factors are going to look like this. X minus 2. X minus 2 again. Equals, my right side is now 16. Now, instead of writing my factor twice, you're going to go ahead and see a pattern. They're going to be repeating factors. So instead of writing it twice, I'm going to write it once. And I'm going to write it to the power of 2 equals 16. Notice here that we completed the square. So both of my lengths of my square are always going to be the same because it's a square. So we're going to have them factored and they're going to be repeated factors. Now, how do we solve here? We're going to take the square roots now. So square root. What happens to my square root and my square? It cancels out. And let's see what happens to my right side. We have now x minus 2 equals, what happens to my right side? But we're square rooting, so we have positive and -4. All right. Now, since we have two values, we're going to go ahead and create two equations. My first equation is x minus 2 equals +4. My second equation is x minus 2 equals what? -4. Let's solve for x. Let's see what we get. So we're going to add 2 Add 2, we're left with 0. We're left with x equals 4 plus 2, 6. So my value is here is 6. Let's go ahead and add 2 here. Add 2. Left with 0. We're left with x equals -2 in this case. So my solutions here are 6 and -2. X equals. Beautiful. -2 and beautiful 6. Not too bad, huh? No, it's another method. Okay. All right. Once we get into circles, you'll see that we're not going to need the method again. I'll go ahead and remind you about the process. Ready? Next example. Dios mío. All right, here we go. Number 2, go ahead and copy this one down. -3x squared plus 18x minus 15 equals 0. Okay. Go ahead and tell your neighbor, is this written in standard form, yes or no? So is it written in standard form? Who went last? Me. Mia, yes. No, you pass it on. You pass it on to Angel. Angel, pass it on. Yeah. Brianna, is it written in standard form, yes or no? Yes, it is. Okay, now my next option or my next step is to, let's go back to my steps so you guys can remember. Divide the equation by the leading coefficient. Do we have a leading coefficient other than 1 here? Yes, so what are we going to do with that beautiful leading coefficient? Divide each term by it. So let's go ahead and do that. So what is my leading coefficient here? -3. So divide each term by -3 on one side. Whatever you do to one side, you do to the other. Even though it's 0, you still have to apply the same procedure. All right, so what is my leading coefficient now here? It's 1, so we have x to the power of 1. Sorry, x to the power of 2 with leading coefficient of 1. That's what I meant to say. And we have 18x divided by -3, which gives me -6x. -15 divided by 3. +5 equals beautiful 0. Okay, so we have now our beautiful equation here. Let's see. What do we do next? Brianna, pass it on. Joelle, what do we do next? Before we factor, we're completing the square. You could do the power ranger method, but there's another way. We're doing completing the square today. Oh, the B square. So before we do the B square, let me go back to my methods, to my steps. Eliminate the, so let's go ahead and eliminate the constant. So how do we eliminate the constant? Do the inverse operation of it. So if it's positive, we do what? Subtract 5 on both sides. Okay. This goes to 0. Now I'm going to go ahead and rewrite it so that I leave a space. So we have x to the power of 2 minus 6x. Our beautiful space on one side equals, what is 0 minus 5? -5. And continue to add also the same space on the opposite side. Okay. All right, Joel, pass it on. Divine, what do we do next? Before we do power ranger. So how do we get this value, guys? We do the half b squared. So here is my half b divided by 2 and squared. What is the value of b in this case? -6. So b is going to equal -6. So let's go ahead and write that in. So we have -6 divided by 2 to the power of 2. A ver. -6 divided by 2 is 3. -3 squared is Beautiful, 9. So what are we adding to both sides? 9. Okay. All right. So let's go ahead and see. Let's factor. What are my factors here? What two numbers give me 9 and add -3? -3, -3. Did you guys notice that it's the same factor? Do I need to write them twice? No, I'm going to go ahead and write them only once to the power of 2. So this would be negative x minus 3 squared equals 4. What is my step here? Square root, square root. My square roots cancel. I'm left with x minus 3 equals plus or minus 2. So we have two equations. Let's go ahead and do the first equation. X minus 3 equals what? Positive 2, and x minus 3 equals -2. All right, so what's my first solution? Add 3, add 3. I'm left with x equals 5. Add 3, and I'm left with x equals beautiful 1. So this is using the square root method. Any questions on this, guys? All right, let me go ahead and give you guys one on your own. Actually, you know what? Let me go ahead and give you guys your worksheet so you guys can start practicing.